Okay, so I'm gonna start. I've been I've been informed that the afternoon class is canceled, right? So I didn't expect like many people to come this morning too. Anyhow, just okay. Okay, so just an update on your midterm examination. Have finished like, marking all the papers. Uh, I just don't have a manpower to fill in the the Excel sheet yet. I don't have the Excel sheet of your class, so I have to do it manually. So it would take a little while, maybe tomorrow. But probably before Songkran, you're gonna uh get your exam result back. Not sure if that's good news, but what it is. My general comment is that I think uh, the biggest obstacle to your performance in PPE is your ability to compose an essay. So it's nothing about like your knowledge of constitutional law, anything. But mostly, I believe that if it's conversational, you can carry it on, and you can do like remarkably better than writing. But when it's come to writing an essay, which is a totally different skill, I think you really struggle with that. So if I have any advice to you, is that like you should pay attention or invest in like taking class on essays or writing something. I mean, of course, this is not only for constitutional law class, but it helps you with other classes as well. Next week is a bit tricky because it's between Songkran and another weekend. It's going to be recorded. It's not live. It's not hybrid. It's going to be recorded and sent to you. Okay? So that might help. So please don't show up. Don't show up. Just go enjoy it. So it goes bad. Anyhow, okay. So let's continue on the topic of rights and liberties. I think just recap last week's uh, lessons. I think one thing like when we talk about rights and liberties, we means a lot of things all at once. Sometimes we think of it as entitlement, sometimes it's benefit, sometimes it's an ability to make a claim, and sometimes uh, it means immunity from other people to mess with our own stuff, you know. Sometimes in my political science class, I I would emphasize on the importance of considering anything to be a right or privilege or a duty because um, the consequence is different, different. Okay. If that thing is your right, uh, other people will have a duty to either to respect it or to fulfill it when you make a request. But for example, I mean, if you are going on maybe like a trip yeah, and you are allowed like up to 5,000 baht for your accommodation. Within that 5,000 baht, you have a discretion, right? You might, I mean, if I say that you have up to 5,000 baht to spend on accommodation, can you spend less than that? Sure. Yes. Can you spend more than that? Yeah. No. Do you have to spend 5,000? No, right? So it really depends. Like you can choose your accommodation from the range of, I don't know, like 1,000 to 5,000 is okay. I mean, even if you max out your accommodation allowance, that's totally fine, right? I mean, sometimes people are gonna say, "Oh, you are so wasteful because you spend all your money, like max out your accommodation allowance." But that is within your limit. Right? It will be very different if the rules say that your accommodation allowance is 5,000 baht and you must use it. So that's not your right anymore. It's your duty, right? You have to spend, like you cannot spend less, you cannot spend more, you have to spend exactly 5,000 baht. What if the organizer give you only 4,000 baht? Then you can ask for like that missing 1,000, right? So you know like that entitlement, you can ask them to pay you in full. When you put the concept of rights in the perspective of constitutional law, there's an expectation that if the constitution guarantee you rights and liberties, at least, I mean, the state has the duty to protect it. And sometimes the state has the duty to fulfill it. So there's a different concept. It depends on how you think about it, negative or positive rights. Have I covered the idea of positive and negative right yet? Yes. Okay. So mostly we think of negative rights in, especially in the area of like basic human rights, right to life, right to body, freedom of travel, freedom of occupation, uh, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and freedom of expression. Mostly we expect the state to do nothing with this right. The I think the the principal need for us is to be left alone so we can live our life, control our body, express whatever opinions we have, and we wish the state never like come around. Um, of course, I mean, it doesn't mean that state will not do anything, right? So you think about it, we want right to life, we want safety, right? So that doesn't only mean that the state leave you alone, but it implies that the state we have to like have a better police department and better gun control stuff. But on you individually, you want the state to not be there, just want to enjoy yourself in full, right? But you compare it to, for example, right to like, what we call it social, economic, or cultural rights, which you can say that this is not about like basic survival of an individual, but this is to fulfill your quality of life. So it's not only survival. You want to have some quality of life. So you want to have a good life. You want better schooling. You want shelter. You want healthcare. In this sense, we sometimes we call it positive, right? Because we want the state to take action, to be proactive. I mean, you cannot like just be there and you get good education. You have to do something to get good education. Healthcare, for example, uh, it's not natural. Someone has to build the healthcare system and maintain it, supply it with doctors and medical. So you see that at first we might start from something very humble. We just want to survive. We just want to survive from and get shield from like cruelty, from forced labor, from violence and war, and that's pretty much basic humans need, right? But when the state fulfill all of this, we start looking for more, and now we start looking for comfort, security, and development. That's it. That's a key part, I think. From survival, now you want some development and comfort. So you look for good environment, decent housing. I think that makes designing a constitution challenging as the concept of rights and liberties proliferate. Constitutional designers or constitution drafters face a very difficult choice, a very difficult question, like which rights to be included at the constitutional level. Now there's so many rights. You cannot put them all in the constitution. It's going to be too long, too detailed. But which one should be included? And how we arrive at that conclusion? Why do you think you should include this and that? And I mean that there's a few approaches if you want to design a constitution. You ask like which right to be included. I mean the easiest one is I mean you can go with a universal standard. For example, you look at some universal document of human rights. For example, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, for example, or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights by the UN Human Rights Committee. You kind of get an idea of like what is the standard there? What is universally accepted as an essential part of the right and liberty section? You can look around too. You can look at your neighbors. You can look at some country that had a good record of human rights, and you try to look into their constitution and ask, um, can I like borrow your section on right and liberties and put it in my constitution? If if I give you a choice, like which country you're gonna look into the right and liberty section? Like which constitution do you want to look at and copy? Yeah. Sweden. Okay. Why? Just well, you can learn about a lot of countries. You pick Sweden, there must be something apart from like recently just exposed with. I mean, I just recently learned about Cambodia, but would I like copy the constitutional protection of rights and liberty? I don't think so. So mostly we look at performance and I mean maybe like level of development a lot exists. And we make a decision whether we want to copy it or not. And as I think the world goes by, there's a homogeneity. So there's a convergence of how many constitutions around the world recognize right and liberties. As I say, because you start looking at a universal standard and you copying each other. So more and more, I mean, when you draft a new constitution, you kind of getting a very similar looking set of rights and liberties. What is more important than right and liberty is the limits of them. Because this is where it really matters. You say like you want the state to leave you alone. You want to be able to say whatever things you want to say, right? So there's the concept of freedom. You want to say you want to be able to say whatever and do whatever, but you know that you can never be absolutely free to say whatever and do whatever, right? So that's what Rousseau, that's what I mean, that's what a lot of political philosophers have warned us that like in a natural state of men where you have total freedom, it's not gonna lead to like absolute freedom of the whole society. Actually, if everyone is totally free, what would happen? I mean, if everyone become totally free, like 100% free, what would happen in the society? Chaos, right? The war of all against all. So the basic idea is that you are free up to a certain extent, and that is actually where it really matters. The boundary of your rights and liberties, where to end. So this is where different countries gonna put different uh limits, limitations to their constitutionally guaranteed rights and liberties. When you say people have freedom of expression, it goes without saying that you have freedom of expression up to a certain extent. That doesn't mean like you can be 100% free, but you're gonna be free up to a certain point, but beyond certain point, uh, you have to control yourself, control your urge to express an idea. Right? So- and this is where it become very tricky. You can guarantee a lot of rights and liberties in your constitution, but you can also put a lot of limits to the point that right and liberties become useless. You know that you cannot allow people to be 100% free, absolutely free. But you know that if you put too much limit on that freedom, then the total idea of freedom and liberties and right become useless. So there must be some middle ground or some balance. You have to strike a balance between freedom and control. Where and how you're gonna do that? So if you are government, for example, if you become a prime minister, and someone asks you, where should we draw a limit to freedom of assembly? People are free to like come together and meet and do a lot of activities together. But there should be a limit to it. And someone asks you, maybe not as a prime minister, maybe you like go to like a Miss Universe contest. This is a final round question. What's the limit to freedom of assembly? Okay. In order to become like Miss Universe in like 2030, I don't know. Like you have to answer this question. Where would you draw the limit?
As that has to be the outcome.
The uh, go on.
As long as that assembly doesn't hurt other people, as long as they peacefully protest all.
Okay. So you say as long as the protest is peaceful.
Yeah. As long as it's not chaos.
It's not chaos. Yeah, so there's a fine line here, peaceful and chaotic. It's not always okay. Okay, let's start with peaceful first. Okay. Uh, Peaceful can be a lot of things. Like, what if we have a peaceful protest, but you say something about like, uh, it's very difficult. I mean, I'm not that type of person. But, okay, so we start with this. What do you mean by peaceful? Can we use like a speaker? Mostly it's like fine. I mean, if you have big assembly, you can do a speaker. Can you occupy the street? Yeah. You think about it. Uh, when you protest, what do you want? A lot of people. I mean, this is number game. If few people show up, then your protest is like. Uh, but exactly why you want like a lot of people to come. You, but why more people means more impact. You power. You want it to be really loud. I mean, not in terms of voice, but you want it to be like loud. You want it to be in your face because you have a message and you want to deliver it across. Like, uh, I mean, of course, you can write a book about it. You can you can write an article in newspaper. You can talk to your friend, but sometimes you feel that all these are not effective. It is not communicating to the general public. You want it to be loud. You want your message to be received by everyone. So you want it to be big. You want it to be flashy. You want it to be very inconvenient. I mean, this is to be loud, yeah, to be very loud. So like if you murmur at the corner of the room, no one gonna notice what you are murmuring. Like, but if you shout, it is inconvenient to other people, but other people gonna hear you loud and clear. So when you say peaceful and you say uh cannot use speaker, maybe some speaker, uh, you cannot occupy the street. In a way, this is where the challenge is. I mean, if I am a police, I would say something like, um, yep, you can protest, but can you move from the front of the parliament to the back of the parliament because this is where like most cars gonna pass through, so you're gonna cause a lot of traffic jam. Or, can you like uh protest again after office hour because that's when the traffic is less busy. So you can come back at 6 p.m. and you can protest from 6 to 8 p.m. But after 8 p.m. I just want it to be quiet and dispersed. You see what happens now. So the police is using the excuse of peaceful like peaceful protest to render the protest meaningless. Like if you want to make a protest, if you want to stage a protest in front of the parliament, and the police says, "Can you like move to the back where not many people are gonna see you?" So in the sense like then why do you stage a protest at all? Because they try to like make it not loud. Right? Okay. So it's actually like sometimes it's not easy to say where the limit is. You say it shouldn't be chaotic. If it become chaos, real story, whenever you stage a protest, no matter how peaceful it is, the police gonna come in and beat you up. And the police say that when the police start beating you up, there's a chaos. So you have to stop protesting. You see the trap here, right? The chaos will always be there because the police is there, but the police say that once the police is there, it deems like not peaceful. You have to go home. So in that sense, I mean, you can never have a protest because whenever you're gonna have a protest, the police gonna be there and make it like unconstitutional for you. One very interesting part of protest is profanity in language of the protesters. And this is contextual. Think about it. Think about it. Freedom of expression. So in the classroom, for example, if this is like international relation, like IR class, international politics, and we talk about Donald Trump, for example, as a class instructor, I don't think like if I say something like Trump is an asshole. I think I'm pushing a limit on what an instructor can say in a class. I mean, if I use all the F word and C word and stuff like that, I mean, people are gonna be very uncomfortable with me, like saying all of these, right? Say like he's a Nazi and blah blah blah. Like, so so in a classroom, I think there's a limit to the choice of language. But what if this is a no king protest in Washington, D.C., and someone say fuck Trump? I mean, in a way, this is a profane language, not polite. But in a way, in that context, the F word is more acceptable than in a classroom. It's not polite at all, but there's certain function to that. I mean, when you say that Mr. Trump's ability to perceive reality is being questioned. and someone said Trump is demented, or someone said Trump is losing his mind, or some Trump is crazy. So that I mean, it's the same message, but it is delivered differently, and the strength of each message differs. So if the police say something like, "Yeah, but a constitutionally peaceful assembly doesn't include profanity," then you're not gonna get a protest. You're gonna get a school assembly, right? And all of a sudden, your constitutionally guaranteed right and liberty is just useless because actually like, it's not effectively exercised. I just want to point out that there's always tension on what the people want to do or want to push, and there's also a tension on what the government want to push as well, like to keep things under control, and people try to push it further. But your friend is right. When we think about the limit to right and liberty, first thing I think we think of the public. You can exercise your rights and liberties as long as you don't disturb or disrupt the public's peace. Yes. You can protest, but somehow you cannot you cannot cause, for example, you cannot cause like public disturbance. You can use speaker up to a certain level or at certain time, but like around 10 p.m., people expect you to turn down. What else? What would be the limit to right and liberty? Public peace. What else? What about uniform? What about uniform? Yeah. So uniform is basically the limit to your freedom of choice, right? You want to put on dress of your choice, and the authorities say like, no, actually you have to like put on like certain shirt and certain pants. What's the reason for that? No, okay, let's think about this. Which uniform are you thinking about? Student? Yeah, okay, but a lot of people wear uniform, make no fuss, right? So there might be certain area where uniform is acceptable, and there's an area where uniform is more controversial. Student uniform, mm, on one hand, I think we see no reason why you need a student uniform. Maybe on graduation day, if you want to, if you want to, if you don't want to participate in graduation day, that's totally fine. You don't have to wear it. But if you want to like go to the ceremony, you are asked for. But what about police and military uniform? If we feel that it's okay, but why? Yeah, why? Why like military uniform is okay, but student uniform is not like that.
Maybe like showing beauty, like if they were police, people like they are listening.
Okay,
What show?
but why people need to know that they are police? Because this is not like a complicated question, like this is like a very like like very simple, straightforward question.
Their outreach. If they wear like just normal clothes, then other people can pretend like they're police as well, can distract the responsibility.
You can say that is effectiveness of law enforcement. So somehow, I mean, the limit to the policeman's freedom over their body is justified by the idea of effectiveness of law enforcement. So there's public peace, right? So you say that it would help the police to maintain peace and order in the society. So that's. But talk about military conscription, right? Thai guys over 20 years of age has to do like 2 years military duty. If you look into the constitution, there's a clause saying that coffee labor or forced labor is unconstitutional, but conscription it is exempted. It's not a forced labor. Why does the state justify military conscription? National security, right? So you see all these are like, I mean, it's not the hardest thing to figure why the state want to put some limits to your rights and liberty, public order, peace, national security. So actually the whole legal system, I think 80-90% of legal system is all about putting limits to your rights and liberties for various reasons. 6 years ago, we have COVID-19. So you guys probably in like a junior high or something. So the government shut down the border. If you want to travel, you you need to go under certain procedures. Sometimes you cannot travel at all. Sometimes you can under certain conditions. Stuff like that. But the state was able to do that because the communicable disease law allows them to, and the communicable of pandemic diseases law is there to prevent further spread of the pandemic, right? And you can see, I mean, you can see clearly why the state needs such a law to to protect public health, which is part of a public order. So public interest, you can put all of this in a category of public interest, public health, public peace, national interest, social order, and stuff. You can put them in one single category of public interest, and that is the main reason why the state can put limit to your freedom. Sometimes else, the state put a limit on your freedom to protect other people's rights and liberties. I mean, this is classic, right? A classic instance of where your rights stop. Is like you can do whatever, you can say whatever, but you cannot. For example, you can say whatever you want to say, but you cannot falsely accuse someone of something so derogatory and harm their reputation, harm their dignity. That is what we call defamation. And you punch yourself and you punch your friend's face. No. What if your friend asks you to punch them?
Stay home.
Can you? Okay, there's like a yes cam and the no cam. Okay, let's give it a real example. You know, like a Buddhist amulet. พระเครื่อง like a classic. Whenever like why people why a lot of people pursue these amulets? They have some mythical powers. Like what are these mythical powers? Yeah, they can protect you from a lot of things. Like I mean, some amulets like to make you rich, to make you lucky. But mostly like you want protection from harm, right? So the most common advertisement is like, uh, if you have this amulet, you are immune from injuries, bullets, knife, whatever. Yeah. So what often happens when someone got an amulet claiming to protect you from a gun, and they ask their friends, yeah, to try shoot them, and what happened? Yeah, definitely. I mean, um, if you look up in like the court precedent in the docket of the court, uh, range of injuries from death up to like, I mean, it depends. Sometimes like they ask you like stab me, and the friend's like no, hell no. But they say like it's okay, even if I got injured, I forgive you for that. They say like I will forgive you for that. I mean, you have impunity because he stabbed his friends and bleeding and go to the hospital and stuff, and the police come and can you claim your friend's forgiveness as an excuse from criminal liability? Why? Why? I mean, we all get a sense like you cannot claim that excuse, but why?
No, that's not included.
Because we know that nobody should work on our stuff with consent with partners.
There's a limit to the consent, right? So you can consent to a lot of things, but to a certain point, like the law say, like even with consent, we're gonna hold you liable, whatever. Why? Because up to a certain point, the state saying that this is your basic right that even you yourself you cannot forgive, you cannot give away, dispose of it. Partly is public interest as well for people to not stabbing each other, but it is also to protect you. It is like the question: can you sell your kidney to the organ trafficking Chinese gang so you can get money to buy a new iPhone? It's your kidney, it's your body. but to a certain point, the state say like, no, we are not protecting the public. We are protecting you from your stupidity. So the limit of rights is not only for public interest. Sometimes it's for your personal interest as well. Yeah. When you are 14 years, I mean, you turn 14. Can you drink? I mean, of course, I mean, a lot of time when the law put limit on drinking, they put the limit because the law is concerned about harm to other people. Like, you shouldn't drink and drive because you're gonna kill someone else. Right? You might crash into other people's property, crash into another car. But what if I say, I'm I'm 14 years old. I just want to like I promise to stay in my bedroom and drink, and it's not some mysterious white stuff. Can you? I mean, definitely there's no harm to other people, but still the law said no. You are too young to do that. We're gonna protect your own interest against your own stupidity. You might wait for like 6 more years, and you can you just you can drink whatever you want when you turn 18, but not at 40. So the minimum drinking age in Thailand is that 20? 20? You can buy alcoholic drinks at age of 20, but can you drink it? Like I think you can drink it at 18, no? I don't know. I don't know. Like at the age of 15, you can drive motorcycle. This is when you get motorcycle driving license. 18, you can get a drive like a normal driving license, car driving license. You can vote in an election. Yeah, I think you can drink only after like 20. So actually, like all the Thai universities are violating the law. I mean, one classic example would be statutory rape, right? So you know what is statutory rape is. So rape is like unconsent sexual act, right? What is statutory rape? So rape is like unconsensual, right? So anything unconsensual is a force, is rape. But statutory rape means that even if there's consent, the law consider that action to be a rape anyway. So even if that person is totally okay or totally like giving you consent, that consent doesn't count. The law will punish the proprietor anyway. Why? When who to whom does a statutory rape apply? Minors, minors, right? So even if the minor give consent, that consent doesn't count because there's an area where like your personal freedom to give consent is limited by the law. The law said, no, we have to protect you from your own stuff. I don't know. What if you are 15 and you want to do OnlyFans? No, I mean definitely no. There's like public nudity laws and other stuff concerning it. Anyway, so just bear in mind that the limit to your right and liberties can be public interest. So public is like a very generic idea, right? So you cannot pinpoint public. Public is like the idea of the mass out there, right? Sometimes it's your own self-interest that the state try to put a limit on, like to put a limit on your right to protect you from yourself. Sometimes it's other people, like you cannot burn other people's property. You cannot stab your friend. In that case, no one has right. Like your friend doesn't have the right to give you a consent to harm themselves, and you have no right to harm them as well. So everyone gonna go to jail here.
What about assistance?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you are able to commit suicide in the sense that suicide is not a crime in Thai legal system. In the criminal code, there's like murder, there's manslaughter, right? Suicide is basically a manslaughter to yourself, but suicide is exempted from liability. You think it's gonna be very ridiculous if you attempt. I mean, if you commit suicide successfully, the state cannot prosecute you for doing that, right? Because you are not there, right? But if you attempt to commit a suicide, attempt, it didn't go through for some reason. It become if the state consider it to be manslaughter and put you on the trial, that also doesn't make sense because the state gonna execute you for manslaughter. So in a way, it it ends the same thing. Like, I mean, it would be ridiculous if you say that attempted suicide is punishable by death penalty. Doesn't make sense. But the law exempt only that person. If you assist a person on suicide, that's manslaughter. So that's the limit. There are certain things that the state say no, you can't. So in Thailand, we finally allow passive euthanasia. So what is passive euthanasia? So the doctor stop giving you treatment to sustain your life. So they allow you to naturally pass away. We are yet to legalize active euthanasia. What is active euthanasia? So there's two types of euthanasia. Passive euthanasia is when like a medical person allow you to naturally uh, pass away. They wouldn't try to intervene in the process. Like they wouldn't put tube on you. But active euthanasia is different. Active euthanasia is when the doctor actively put you to sleep, like to to end your life. So like injecting chemicals to stop your heart from breathing and stuff like so Thai laws accept the concept of passive euthanasia, but for active euthanasia, no. We still think that uh, that beyond the boundary of right and liberties that the constitution allows person to do taking life. But you have to be very, 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 very careful here. So a lot of time, if you look into a constitution, it will say something like a person has the right to X, Y, Z, but the person cannot exercise the right to X, Y, Z in contrary to or in violation of public interest, national interest. stuff like that. The problem is here, public interest is a very ambiguous, no, not, it's a very vague word. What would you consider to be public interest, and what the state consider to be public interest? Might not be one and the same. For example, someone think that we should criticize the government because if you give the government feedback, the government can perform better. Or if you give government feedback, it prevents the government from becoming tyrannical. Okay, and you think that so criticizing the government is in the public interest to do, so you are free to do that. The government might think otherwise. The government might think that you are sabotaging the government by criticizing them. They might say something like, oh, you might say something like, there's a corruption in the military. Out of the budget of 20 billion baht, like they take away like 40% of that budget. So you criticize the army because you want to make it less corrupt and more effective, more transparent. And the army might say something like, oh, you just jeopardize national interest because okay, you hurt the morals of soldiers, so we're gonna put you in jail for that. Or you disrespect the army. The army is a highly respected institution in Thailand. So you see, like the government might think differently from what you think to be public interest. And of course, I mean, people would try to push the boundary and the government try. Okay, I tell you, okay, this is a very, very old joke. Yeah, yeah. Someone once criticized Stalin for being an idiot. He got 20 years in prison, 10 years for defaming the respected leader, and another 10 years for exposing national secret. No, but like the state, that you might have like different priorities on what you can do, what you can say, what you should do. Right? There's a Thai dessert shop, and the owner of the sweet shop, innovate. Uh, it's an amulet shaped cookies. I think that's a few years ago, right? And if you ask the owner, she said, okay, this is cute, and this is like a you put Buddhism into a pop culture and makes more and more people interested in Buddhism. So she thinks that this is permissible because she is doing a good deed. I think it's called Alua Pabutaru. But the National Office of Buddhism, the National Office of Buddhism has a totally different idea because they think that this is an insult to the Lord Buddha, and actually they asked the National Security Office to visit the sweet shop, and she has to like stop baking that cookie. So you see, like we don't always agree on what is permissible. The state saying that a married woman should adopt a husband's last name because to be able like they say like family is a very important social institution. That's fair. I mean, in any society, you need a family as like a basic unit of that society. And the government said that in order to become a family, you need some like unity, like love and unity. So people should all adopt the same last name, okay, to show unity as a unit. And people think otherwise. People think that oh, actually this is like unequal treatment of men and women when you have to change last name. In many countries, you don't have to change your last name when you get married, but maybe Thailand it used to be like that. So eventually they settle it in the constitutional court, the where the constitutional court ruled that actually like the family is sustained by love and understanding and mutual respect. So mutual respect means that the woman shouldn't have to like change their last name or adopt the last name or submit it to the husband. So there's one example where it is settled by the judiciary. But as I say, there's always tension on what the government can put a limit to your right and liberties. If we are not careful, the government can put more and more limitation to your right and liberties, and before you know, uh, it's gone. Like if, for example, if the government passed the law saying that a person cannot say anything that hurt the public's feeling, that's going to be a very dangerous law, you know. A person cannot say anything that hurts public feeling. I mean, you don't know where's the limit, right? You don't even know like what you say gonna upset the public or not. I mean, there's a lot of good things that when you say it, it is beneficial to the public, but it also upset the public. For example, when you say something like, actually, the earth revolve around sun. Galileo said that. It's not vice versa. It's not like the sun revolve. Like there's a question like which one revolve around which, right? So it's the earth or the sun that orbit around what? And Galileo said something like, yeah, it's the earth that orbit around the sun. And people get really, really, really mad for that. But actually what Galileo said laid a foundation for modern science, right? You where knowledge is deducted from observation, objective observation, and try to and modern physics, right? Or when Charles Darwin said that, well, human descend from like a ape-like creature. I mean, before Charles Darwin, people believe that the Earth is just only 4,000 years old, and human is always in this form, and every animals never go extinct and never evolve. Charles Darwin said that, you know, life evolved and we used to look like monkey. People get super upset because it up in the biblical belief, but actually what Charles Darwin said laid a modern foundation for biology. So you see that kind of law said limiting your freedom of expression, say you cannot upset the public's feeling. Might not always be in the best interest of the public. Like if you say to your friend that or your partner saying that you're actually a toxic person, it definitely gonna hurt that person's feeling. But for the better good of the public, sometimes you have to say it. You look at Donald Trump, he said whatever please the public's feeling. American public, well, not the whole world, but I mean he served Americans' interests, and actually that's why a lot of people choose him, right? Because what he said pleased the ears of the public, but it's actually very bad for the public interest, but it's happy going. So just be careful. But when the state want to put a limit on you, the constitution doesn't give the state a free check or a blank check to do that. In a democratic society, when the government want to put a limit on your rights and liberties, they have to undergo one very important test, which we call the principle of proportionality. I mean, on one hand, this is a very basic and logical approach to everything in your life, right? What would you do if all of a sudden a cockroach walks into this room? What would you do when a cockroach walks into this room? With?
Sure.
When you shoot, okay, that's fine. What else can you do? Yes, smashing it seems to be a good choice, but why smashing it is a good choice? What?
Then the problem with
Yeah, enough the problem, but there's a range of methods of disposing a cockroach, right? Why you choose smashing?
For hate college.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not questioning why people dispose of a cockroach. People hate cockroach. We're gonna kill it. But why you choose smashing and not other ways of disposing it? But there's a range of things. You can come with a flamethrower. You can come with insecticide and spray it. You can put chemical to it. You can smash it. And you can smash it with your hand, your shoes, I don't know, a broom, or even you throw like your laptop to the cockroach. Every way I describe will kill a cockroach, but why you choose smashing it? It's the most effective, right? We can say this is the most proportionate reaction to it. I mean, you can use a flamethrower, but but the consequence or the side effect of the flamethrower gonna be far exceeding the benefit you get from the flamethrower. I know a person who like he was in his home and and a snake like slid into his house. He picked a pistol and empty a magazine on the snake. Of course, it killed a snake, but also like you end up with like 6 holes on your floor, right? Because you use pistol, shot a snake. So modern society, a modern state is built on the idea of rationality. I think Immanuel Kant describes state as a rational things. So rational action, rational thinking, rational reaction to things. And part of being rational is being proportional. So being proportionate is something like in between two extremes. What if you break up with your girlfriend? You're gonna be sad. Can you cry? Definitely, yeah, sure, cry. Can you go to her house and set her house on fire?
Sure you can.
Sure you can, but the law not allow that. The laws will allow you to cry. Like you can like in a movie, like you burn the couple photo, you burn like I don't know souvenirs, gift stuff, but can you murder your ex? The law, I mean, physically, yes, but the law said no, right? I mean, legally, you can't. There's a certain reaction you are allowed. Beyond that, the states think that that's irrational, that's disproportionate to it. And it's the same applying to the state. I mean, when the state said, all right, we have to, for example, this is a very basic things. We need to enhance road safety. You know that Thailand is the second most dangerous uh, country in terms of road safety. I think the last survey I read, the most dangerous, I think it's Afghanistan or Iraq because they have IED. So there's a bit of a shame because Thailand is such a developed a developed country with such a horrible road safety standard. But think about it. How many seat belts do you have in your car?
Fully fine.
Usually 5. What else do you have? Like as a safety measures in your car?
Airbags.
Airbags stuff. So there was a time when all these safety measures were not necessary. You think about the first car in the history, it goes like at the 10 miles per hour. You don't need safety feature because like, it's so slow. And probably you are the only car on earth, so there's like no chance of, of an accident. Like you might hit a horse, you might hit a tree, for example, but you're not gonna have head-on collision with other. But things develop until you have a really fast car. Like in the 60s, in the 50s, 60s, you start having fast car, right? So the road accident became more and more severe. And the state is not happy about that. People say, this is my choice. I can drive as fast as I want to. And the state said, no. But how are you going to improve a safety record of a driver? I mean, if you prohibit people from driving, the statistic of road fatality gonna drop 100%, right? But that's outrageous. That's like irrational. You can try to put a limit to the car, saying every car has to put a limit. Like you cannot go faster than 40 miles or 40 kilometers per hour. You still have an accident, but the accident is not gonna be severe, right? Because that's why. Because what kills you is the reaction force go, applying to your body. Right? The faster you go, the more force gonna react to your body. So if you go slow, the accident gonna be less severe. If you go faster and faster, it's gonna be more and more severe. So if the state put a cap at like 40 kilometers per hour, that's fine. But still, I mean, we think that there's too much limit to the liberty. Like so the state cannot let you like drive like that with no safety equipment or safety measure, but the state cannot like take away the right to drive. So they have to meet in the middle. I mean, I remember my first car when I was a kid, they have no safety belt at all. Back then, I mean, in the 80s, a lot of car doesn't have safety belt. I mean, I remember like as a kid, a lot of kids, like, a lot of families, like when their parents driving in the front, their kids just like playing, climbing up and down on the back seat, which is fine. And one day the government said that the law require a driver to put on seatbelt. So that transformed like the whole generation of car. I mean, all of a sudden people have to discard the old car, and the new car will come with equipped with a seat belt, a safety belt. Or if you still drive an old car, you have to like install it. Some people install it. And a few years after that, the state passed a new law saying that now we require the passenger in the front row to have a safety belt. And nowadays, the law require passenger in the back seat. Not every passenger in the back seat, but if you are under the age of 6, I think, you need to install either a car seat or you have to like go with the. I think the adult can hold you and put on seat belt. I think that's fine. So, but you see, like slowly and slowly, the state putting more limits on your freedom. But if you look at the measure, you understand that this is a proportionate reaction to the problem. We still have certain right over our car and our drive. And the limit is just a minor inconvenience. So that is what a constitution expected from the government. There's a test, proportionality test, meaning that you have to ask a few questions when you want to put a limit on people's right and liberties. One of them is like the very first question is to ask like whether that limitation will lead to the desired outcome. Not. This is important. A lot of time the state didn't think carefully about it. For example, during COVID-19, there's a shortage of facial masks, glove, rubber glove. I don't know, you guys some of you guys might still have facial mask storing in the in your locker or something. Um, during that time, we bought so many boxes of mask. Like it's still there. Anyhow, on the surface, as a government, when there's a shortage of facial masks and medical gloves, what you gonna do? Right? So when there's a shortage, no, think about it. When there's a shortage of masks, people when the demand start to grow and when supply start to shrink, what would happen in the market?
Well,
The price goes up. That's why. As a government, what you gonna do? Yeah, they do price control. But if you think about it carefully, when you do price control, actually, I talked to the owner of the face mask factory and asked him. He's a manufacturer. I asked him what happened. He said like we stopped manufacturing face mask because there's no the price goes up and there's a shortage because raw material price goes up, right? So when there's raw material price goes up, the cost goes up, the price goes up. When you put a cap to the price but not to the cost, you make no profit. So actually, when you put a cap to the price, you worsen the shortage. So actually, a lot of factories just stop producing facial masks altogether. I think it was. I mean, of course, I mean, the shortage cannot be solved only by free flowing the price. I mean, that's gonna hurt the public, but it means that the state might have to think more comprehensively what you want to do with the shortage. If you want to put cap on a price, um, you want to put it at which level and what you're gonna do with the cost to help elevate it. There's a classic example in the 60s, pigs, a lot of pigs. So yeah, pig, yeah. Pork price is controlled by the Ministry of Commerce for a very simple reason, because like this is a basic food item, so they are monitoring, they are being monitored quite closely by the government. All of a sudden, there's a disease that kill all the pig in the pig farm in one province. Again, supplies go down, price go up. The government put a limit, and when the price of pork goes up, a lot of merchants try to import pork from nearby provinces so they can make profit from the higher pork price. So the government stopped the import of pork meat into that province. You think about it, and this is I think this case go to the Council of State consideration, and the Council of State give a very good explanation. They said when the supply goes down, the price goes up. If they keep importing, like it incentivizes people to import more pork. So when you import more pork, you have more supplies goes up, the price gonna go down. So when you forbid or prohibit the import of pork meat into that province instead of helping lowering the pork price, you are making it worse. Like so you keep the shortage going. So you see it all the time. Whenever the government want to do something, the first question is whether it gonna help realizing the objective of the program. Political party dissolution. They said, right, we have to dissolve a lot of political parties to clean Thai politics of corruption. 20 years forward, is Thai politics cleaner? I don't think so. As corrupt as ever, right? So you know the measure doesn't work. So it actually failed the first test of proportionality test. Like the second question you have to ask, is this the least devastating choice to rights and liberties? Take the car, for example. As I said, there's a range of choice of how to improve the road safety, right? There's a range of choice on how to kill a cockroach, right? Which one is the least harmful, least impacting right and liberties of the people? You should, I mean, the state should, if there's range of choices, the state should pick one that has minimal impact on people's right and liberties. Uh, 2007, the government, I mean, that's 20 years ago, the government has a very clever plan saying that we're going to have a conflict of interest law. And the draft is so thoroughly. Yeah, I mean, the nickname of that law is called seven generations law. So if a person become a government officers, I mean, three generations up and three generations down, I mean, everyone around him and your cousin, your first cousin, second, everyone around you have to declare the conflict of interest. There's like they put a lot of limit on your relative, and that's a bit controversial. I mean, to eradicate corruption is a very good objective, but if your uncle become a local politician, for example, and then all of a sudden you are for, forbidden from taking certain job position or to take certain occupation, that's gonna put unfair amount of limits on you without any clear benefit to the overall attempt of eradicating corruption. So eventually, I mean, I think there's like 34 people around you going to be affected by that law. So eventually the government has to drop that conflict of interest law because it is like disproportionate. It fails the proportionality test. The last question gonna be like, will this new measure, like, will the government's measure like impact or hurt the essence, the like, essential element of that right and liberties? For example, if the government want to deprive you of the entirely freedom of religion, for example, that would be a big problem of entirely uh, taking away your freedom of expression. I said, all right, we we can see that social media cause a lot of trouble, misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, incitement of violence and stuff like that. And there's no other way except, have you ever heard of single gateway? What is it? Single gateway is to create a single channel for the whole country's internet. So the government can monitor and can shut the internet off single-handedly. It is successfully implemented in North Korea and China and to a certain extent Iran. I don't know why it's always like the same name popping up. And Thailand almost adopt a single gateway. They want to shut down the internet. Actually, they experimented with it for 2-3 hours, and there's like a big uproar. They shut down Facebook. Try to put it. Anyway, you see, yep, we understand that there's no effective measures to handle misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, and incitement to violence. I mean, we still haven't figured out the best way to counter it, right? And of course, I mean, to shut down the whole internet is to solve the problem. But it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's going to be too devastating to our freedom of expression, actually. Isn't that Nepal a few years ago when the government tried to shut down the internet for 2-3 days and there are big protests and the government collapsed? I think Iran as well, earlier this year, before the war. No, but in summary, the proportionality test or proportionality principle is one key idea in constitutional thought to test the government's rationality and reasonableness. When the government try to put a limit on your right and liberties, you ask 3 questions, like whether that measure is going to be effective, whether that's the least harmful, and whether that's going to take away like the essence of our right and liberties. If the government fail one of the 3 questions, probably that's a bad measure, and government shouldn't proceed. And that is how a constitution try to strike a balance between public peace, individual interests, and stopping the government from becoming like a authoritarian regime. Like yeah, we are not absolutely free. We are partially free, but in a liberal society, freedom should be like a norm, and limit to your freedom supposed to be an exception. Right. Any question?